Thank you so much for coming to check out another episode of the Stash Cast, where we have interesting conversations with interesting people focused around the world of commercial real estate and prop tech. The Stash Cast is brought to you by Needle. What if you could use data and analytics to predict commercial real estate transactions? You can with Needle. Come check it out at needle, NEDL.us to learn more. All right, today I'm super excited. I've got John Casmon, the founder of Casmon Capital. John and I have known each other for a number of years, and we're finally having a chance to sit down. So, John, thank you so much for coming to join me today.
Absolutely, Stash. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here and talking to you and all your listeners today.
Yeah, awesome. Why don't we get started? Why don't you give us a little bit of a background of who you are and what you do, and how you got to be in the chair that you're in today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an investor in multifamily apartments. We've invested in over $140 million worth of apartments. And today we have, opportunities we're always exploring, primarily in the Midwest. So think Cincinnati, Louisville, Southeast region, Atlanta, markets like that. Prior to getting into real estate, though, I was a full-time corporate executive. So I worked in advertising and marketing. I was based out in Chicago, but I found that I needed to do something different. So ran into a couple different issues, which I'm sure we'll get into here. But ultimately, that led me into commercial real estate. And the big thing for me was recognizing that I need to have a little bit more control over my financial future than what I was having in the corporate world. So that led me to commercial real estate and growing my own portfolio.
Yeah, I think that is shortly before you and I met. You had transitioned, or were in the process of maybe transitioning out of, weren't you with, maybe I can't say who you're with, but you're with a large soft drink company, we'll say. So what, to some people, that is the epitome of maybe the American dream. Why wasn't it the thing for you?
Yeah, listen, first of all, I loved my job. I know some people, they get on and they can't wait to quit and want to be an entrepreneur because they hate their job and they hate their boss and all that. That
Yeah.
was not my experience at all. Okay. I did what you were supposed to do on paper, went to college, got a quote unquote good job and started grinding from there. And I enjoyed what I was doing. My challenge was I was working in the automotive industry. This is back in 2007 and 2008. I was working at General Motors when we went through bankruptcy. So I
Mm.
saw that firsthand, rounds and rounds of layoffs, the uncertainty. I watched people who were lifers who have given their lives to this company who had no idea what they were going to do. And I watched that. And as I was going through it, not just watching on the sidelines, in the fire.
Yeah.
So it made me realize, wow, at any moment, this could be taken away from me. Doesn't matter how good I am in my job. People give you the feedback to just put your head down and keep working.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. You need to have a plan for yourself and you need to understand the politics of corporate America. You need to have a game plan. And I was thinking through all that. And part of it for me was, okay, if I were to get let go of this job, certainly I could go out there and find a new job. But is that what I want to do for the next 30 years? Just continue to update the resume, live in this constant state of not necessarily fear, but anxiety that if I don't do well on this project or if this client leaves, I may not have a job. So ultimately, I thought through that. And the one thing that I kept coming back to was real estate,
Mm.
creating passive income, creating your own portfolio. So that's what I started to do. It took a little bit of time. I moved to Chicago with my wife. We bought a 2-unit building. We house hacked that, lived in one unit, rented out the others. We bought a 3-unit building. And then as we were buying that 3-unit, I realized how much equity we had created in that first property. And that took me from this idea of, okay, hey, real estate's a good place to hedge your bets to real estate's a great way to earn a living and build a career.
Mhm.
And from there, I started to focus more on commercial, buying an 8-unit property in Chicago. And I ran into a problem that many people run into. You may have seen or heard people do this. I kept running out of money. So
Yeah.
I was working and saving and buying properties, but every time I bought a property, I looked at the bank account and there was nothing in there. So I just
Right.
wait until we saved enough money for another property. So that's what opened me up to working with other investors and raising capital. And ultimately, around the time we started meeting and talking and looking at deals in Cincinnati.
So because you're a smart, handsome, professional man, like, you could have done anything. You could have started your own company. What was it about commercial real estate that you said, this is what I want to go and dedicate my time and effort to?
Real estate is simple but not easy. If you understand third grade math, you can
That
invest in real
is
estate, right?
the
It's
truth.
simple, right? It's just basic math. And yes, there's levels of complexity, and my model has probably 100 lines of inputs and all this stuff. So we make it more complex with the forecasting, but that's actually what I was doing when I was in corporate America. I
Mhm.
was sitting there looking at financials. I was doing the forecasting. I was negotiating our scope of work. I was negotiating our statements of work with the clients and understanding our retainers. So that's the kind of work I was doing anyway.
Yeah.
And I love the creative aspect of what I was doing, coming up with ideas, working with our creative team, working with our agency partners, whether I was on, either side of the business. But it always felt stressful because if a campaign didn't hit, there was, if such and such got the big promotion and not this person, it impacted different things. And I just didn't like that aspect of it. And quite frankly, I wanted to get out of the corporate structure. And I'll tell you one thing in particular happened, and I didn't realize it at the time how big it was. But my oldest son, I think he was turning like 2 or 3 or something like that, just a very early birthday. And I had to go on a commercial shoot, so a TV commercial shoot. And I didn't want to go. I didn't want to miss his birthday. And I was trying to figure out somebody else who could go. Nobody else could go. They didn't have the experience. At this moment, our team was very lean. I forgot to mention this, but when I bought that 8 unit building, about a month or two later, the agency I was at actually went into bankruptcy as well. And
Jeez.
at that moment, I'm like, all right, I got to start accelerating this. I can't just keep waiting and hoping and wait for my money to be saved up. Like, we got to figure out another plan.
Yeah.
And at this moment, I have to go on a shoot, and I'm just really upset. I've never been like this on a set. I'm always very professional, take pride in what I do. But I was highly upset and just irritable.
Mhm.
And I remember the moment we were done filming the commercial part of it, I changed my flight, got the next flight out, left. And I didn't realize it at the time, but what happened is two of my core values were in direct competition with each other. And I made a decision of which one was more important, and it ate at me that entire shoot. I've always prided myself on being a hard worker, showing up, not missing a day, being reliable, team player, all of those things.
Yeah.
I also pride myself on being a great present father, someone that the kids can look up to. I'm there, I'm supporting them. And here I am on my kid's birthday, I'm out on a shoot. And I didn't realize it at that time, but in hindsight, it's clear those two values were competing. And I decided that it was more important to be a reliable employee and a dependable, trustworthy teammate than it was to be that present father. Maybe because the kid was only 2 and hey, I would be there for his actual birthday. And I rationalized it in my head. But in that moment, I think what happened is I realized that I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want to be in a situation where I had to choose to either be a great father or be this great worker and employee, especially doing so just for the next 3, 5, 7% pay bump and this dangling of a carrot that may never come. So at that moment, I think I really started to say, okay, I don't want to be in a space anymore. And the thing about real estate that always attracted me was it's plentiful. While I definitely have a lot of intelligence, I'm not the next tech guy. I'm not building that next app or widget or whatever it's going to be. So I needed something that was practical and tangible. And to me, real estate was always that thing where there are people who don't even have a GED, don't even have a high school diploma,
Yeah.
who have made millions in real estate. And there are obviously people who are highly intelligent and well educated who have made millions in real estate. So I felt that, hey, you know what? With the skills that I have, the knowledge I have, I should be able to have success in this space. And I can do it on the side while while I continue to work my day job. So that's exactly what I did.
Mhm. So you were, I guess, the first steps, did you go and take a course or read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. So going back into even the GM days, I'd read Rich Dad, Poor Dad shortly after college. And that planted a seed. And I was always interested in real estate, but didn't really know how to get started. Literally, when I say didn't know, I grabbed a newspaper. I'm from Cleveland, and we had a weekly paper that came out
Yeah.
on Thursdays. And I would grab that and I would just look at the
John?
fast forward to
Oh,
when I was
hold on. I heard you grabbed the paper and then it
yeah.
paused.
Okay, I'll pick it up there.
Ok.
I grabbed the newspaper and I'm just looking at the real estate section at properties, and I just
Yeah.
circle properties and I try to call them, but I have no plan. Literally no plan. I don't have the money. I don't know how to underwrite. I don't even know what that word meant at that point, but I had no clue what I was going to do. I just would get the paper and look at properties in a circle and maybe drive by them, but I had no plan. So it got nowhere. But fast forward, when I was at GM and we were going through bankruptcy, I had a lot of time to think about my career and what I wanted to do. So I did think back on Rich Dad, Poor Dad and said, okay, I need to figure out the appropriate next step here. I now have a little bit of money that I can use to invest. How do I do it? So I did start to read blogs. I started to just leverage Google and whatever I could find. And anyone who ever invested in real estate, if I came across you and I found out you had a rental property, oh, I was picking your brain. And I talked to a number of people about that. And for context, this is like 2008, 2009 in Detroit. Okay. Everybody I was talking to, they were looking to get out of real estate. They were like, oh, you're interested? You want to buy my property? I was like, why is everybody so eager to sell? And at that moment, I realized this may not be the best time to invest. So eventually I moved to Chicago. And what I did in that process, I continued to learn everything I could. I read books. I attended meetups, is what we call them now, but these are just RIA events back then. And I learned everything I could until I got to the point where I could buy that first property, which was a 2-unit building. And that's what allowed me to get going. When you fast forward to that second bankruptcy, and here I am with now 2 young children, 2 kids, 1 in diapers. Job is now going through another bankruptcy. The owner is trying to figure out a way to pay us and keep the business going. All of my savings I just invested into this 8-unit building. I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure to try to figure out what I was going to do. But at that moment, I realized I have to accept this notion of working with other people. And through, I don't know, luck, happenstance, however you want to call it, I made it a point to try to network with people who were in the city I was going to be investing in, which was Cincinnati. Chicago had just gotten priced out for me. And I started to do that. And I was on Bigger Pockets. I made a post about meeting with people, and about 4 people tagged this guy named Joe Fairless. And this is, again, I don't know, 2016 or something like that. So I reach out to him and say, hey, I'm coming to Cincinnati for the holidays. Would love to have lunch. And we meet and have a good lunch. He tells me that he's helping people learn how to invest in commercial real estate. At this point, I had just bought the 8 units, so I felt like I had that, but I had never raised $1. And what really piqued my curiosity was he told me he raised around $1 million for that first deal. And I had never raised $1 for anything. And I knew that was my hurdle. So I was like, maybe he can help me figure that part out. And now I'm not in this situation where I'm praying my job just stays on another 3 months while I work through this next deal or this next project. So I ended up learning more from him, and then eventually got into what we know as real estate syndications.
Nice. As you were recounting your story, I was reminded, and I don't think I've ever told anyone this, but so I moved to California after college, and I was listening to a lot of like podcasts. This was like 2007. And I think the first weekend I was there, I went and attended like a seminar, and it was just how to underwrite. And this guy was like, I think it was free. It was very inexpensive. And he was all about investing in Shreveport, Louisiana, single family homes. But he showed me the kind of magic equation of how to analyze a property. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. That's where it started for me. So it's interesting. It's similar beginnings, but you've taken it to another level. So you've been able to, you're known as a pro networker and capital raiser. You met Joe. How'd you take it from there?
So I think a couple things happened, right? So one thing that was very intriguing to me about Joe is we actually had similar backgrounds. We both were in the advertising world. So when I learned that about him, so, okay, if he can come from that field and apply it and have success, maybe I can come from that field, apply it and have success as well. The first thing for me was recognizing that I had some real fears when it came to raising capital. One, I think as Americans, most of us believe that you just do your own thing, right? You just, whatever you do, you go out, you save, you invest, but you operate in silos and as individuals. Maybe you get a partner where you truly partner together and build together, But for the most part, we don't really talk about working together. Even in school, in education, right? You do your own work, right? You don't partner and cheat.
Right.
It's like that guy already knows the answer. Why not just partner? No, we don't do that.
You're not
Everyone
allowed
does
to
their
do that.
own. You're not
Yeah.
allowed to do that. That's cheating.
Yeah.
So getting over that mindset where up until that point, I literally was like, no, the only way to invest is I save my money. When I have enough money, I will for down payment and the rest, I can go
Mhm.
out and buy a property. And that's how I was operating. So to just learn that's not the only way to operate was big. The biggest thing for me though is I was terrified of losing somebody else's money. I
Yeah.
just was. And I'm sure that's true for many people, but it was a big barrier for me to move forward. I also didn't want to be rejected. And that's something that's more emotional that as a man you don't necessarily want to say out loud. But
Sure.
listen, when you're starting out and you go talk to people and they say no to your idea or your business or whatever it is,
Very
you
discouraging.
take it personal because you've put so much of yourself into it.
Sure.
And it feels like they're rejecting you, even if they're not. And that
Mhm.
was hard to overcome and hear and to take that feedback. And you have to get those doors closed on you a few times for you to be able to separate, the deal and you. Like they're not saying no to you, like you suck, you're gonna fail. What they're saying is either A, I don't understand this, or hey, I don't think this is a fit for me, or hey, that sounds great, but I'm scared and I'm intimidated by it. So it took some time for me to get over those two hurdles. But once I did, the biggest thing was, like you said, taking my background in advertising and marketing and understanding how to build connections. So if you are going to raise capital and work with other people, one of the best things you can do is build out your personal brand. Now, that doesn't mean launching a podcast like Stash and like I have. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean creating a bunch of events. It doesn't mean necessarily posting all over social media, but those things absolutely help. What it does mean is being clearly and communicating what it is you do for people. They have to know how you can help them. If they don't know that you invest in real estate and that they can invest with you, then you are not doing your job. So those things
Right.
that I mentioned are platforms to help you get the message out. But the thing is, people have to know what it is that you do and how you help them.
Mhm. That's interesting. So how did you do that?
So I started by making a list of a bunch of people that I knew, and I put them in buckets. So I put, people from college and people from different organizations I was a part of and jobs that I worked at. And I made a list of all the people that I want to reach out to and just tell them, hey, you may not know this, but I've actually been investing for real estate for a few years. It's going well. I'm looking and I'll partner with other people on future deals. Is this something that you would be interested in learning more about? Or do you know anybody who would be interested in learning more about this?
Yeah.
And I went through that list of people, and many people said, hey, I'm somewhat interested in that. Sure, tell me more. Some people said, no, not a fit for me. And some people said, that sounds amazing, man. How much how much can I invest? And going through that process, I'm like, oh, okay, there are people who are looking for this. I'll go back to that point about being discouraged. You have to realize that this is not going to be a fit for most people. Just like if I had a pair of, shoes or a car or whatever it is, if I try to sell it to you today, you're probably like, dude, I got a car. Like, I don't need a car
Mhm.
today. But at some point, you probably will need a new car, but it's probably not today. That's just the reality of it. So
Right.
the timing is important. Understanding the needs, the challenges, like all that has to match up really well in order to make these deals happen. The best thing that I would tell you as well is to expand that, you have to focus on the message and where you're getting those messages out. We like to call it a thought leadership platform, where you do have a platform to communicate with other people. So for me, my podcast is one, my meetup is another one. These are areas where I can meet and talk to people. And it's not to sell or convince them, it's just simply to let them know, hey, here's something I'm interested in. Here's something that I do. I'm looking to connect with like minded individuals. And that's a great way for us to connect. If someone wants to invest with you, three things have to be true. One, they have to believe in the power of real estate to help them with their own financial goals. If they don't believe in real estate, like it doesn't matter. So if you're talking to somebody who hasn't thought about investing in real estate, doesn't necessarily believe in it, they're never going to invest with you because they don't get the concept. So they have
Right.
to at least believe and understand that people make money in real estate and that they can make money in real estate. The second thing is they have to believe in the exact strategy you're doing. So if we're doing multifamily investing, they then have to understand how apartments work and how do I make money in apartments and What are the risks that are involved, right? So they have to believe that, hey, apartment investing is a good idea. That's the
Mhm.
second thing. And then the third thing is they have to believe in you. And that's the challenging part for most people
Mm.
because you may love or like John, the advertising guy, or your neighbor, or your friend from high school, but John, the multifamily apartment investor, you may not know that individual as well. And
Right.
starting out, you don't have a track record in that space. Why would someone trust you there? So that takes more work for people to get comfortable with. But if you understand those three things, that's how people get comfortable making those investments, right? They have to believe in real estate. They've got to believe in your investing strategy. And then ultimately, and most importantly, they've got to believe in you.
So how did you overcome that objection of, hey, you don't have a track record in this, just like you said? Because that I think that is, people might have those other things. Hey, I'm interested in doing this. I believe in it. I understand it, but oh man, if they point out that I don't have a track record, I'm cooked. Like, what did you do?
So it's a great question. And it's very common objection for many people, right? I like to think of it from the standpoint of looking at the three C's to attract capital, right? The first C is connections. You got to have the network of these individuals to talk to in the first place. The second C, though, which I think so many people miss, is confidence. And confidence is not hubris. I'm not telling you to go up there and put a smile on and use all the industry jargon and try to convince people that you know what you're doing. That is not what I mean. I'm
Mhm.
talking about being prepared. As you mentioned, your experience is your experience, but your preparation is up to you. Every year, college athletes get drafted into the professional sports, and people could say, you've never played at this level. Yeah, but I've played at this level, and here's the success I've had. Here's the training I've had. Here's what I've done to prepare for this moment. It's the same thing with real estate. Study, underwrite deals, attend meetings, read the books, go and do all of these things and take the steps and share it. Something so, as simple as listening to this podcast. In your head, it says, okay, listen to a podcast is not going to make me a real estate investor. It's not, but it's giving you steps
It's
in the right
yeah, it's one of
direction.
the
If
little
you
things on the path.
It's all little things, right? So if you are investing, let's just say 4 hours a week into learning how to be a better real estate investor, reading books, attending events, listening to podcasts, that adds up over time. Now you've got to start analyzing deals and putting in offers and doing other things as well. But you're going to get comfortable knowing your stuff when you're taking action. So that confidence has to come from preparation, right? And you can share that with people. So one of the things that I tell people to do while you're analyzing deals, tell people, one of the deals you're analyzing, even if the numbers don't match or work for you, and share that with people. Hey guys, I know I mentioned to you I'm looking to invest in real estate. Here's a deal that I just analyzed. Now they're asking 5 million for this deal. I think it's a deal at $4 million, but here's the kind of deal. Here's what I like about it. Here's the area. Here's this. Here's that.
Mm.
If we could get this at 4 million, I think this would be a great opportunity. I'm going to keep looking for opportunities, but let me know if you have any questions. Still haven't done a deal, but don't I sound confident? Don't I sound prepared when I'm breaking down what I'm doing in the process? And if I do that and bring you 4 or 5 deals, by the sixth deal, when I actually have it under contract and ready to invest, you're going to feel comfortable investing with me because now I've had a chance to not just show you my knowledge in the space and how comfortable and consistent I am in this space, but also allowing you to learn and ask better questions in the process. So that confidence, you can't fake it. It's got to be true. It's got to be from preparation. And you really have to know your stuff. And a lot of people simply don't. And they don't know what they don't know until it's too late.
Yeah.
So you've got to just put in the work to really understand it. So that
I mean,
confidence is absolutely key.
even as a broker, we have to kick a lot of tires to find. We got to kiss a lot of frogs until we find one that might work. We probably underwrite a
Yep.
couple hundred deals a year, and since joining Cushman, I've just been like drinking from a fire hose with everything that's happening. So I expect that to just increase in volume. But yeah, exactly to your point, you've got to look at a lot of things and really understand it, understand the intricacies and why is this happening and that. And then I have to wonder as a new person, well, if I'm the high bidder, why? Am I the greater fool? Am I underwriting taxes correctly? Am I not accounting for deferred maintenance, perhaps? Is this in a declining neighborhood? But those are only things that you can figure out if you've gone through the motions multiple times, right? You're not going to hit it on your
Absolutely.
first one.
It's that leads to the last one, right? So we talked about the connections, confidence. The last one is credibility.
Yeah.
And credibility is leaning on your own successes. What have you done in the space? But also as a professional. In my case, in advertising and marketing, I've been recognized one of the top advertising executives in the country. I've led the Buick brand to be one of the fastest growing brands in America when we were coming out of the last economic downturn. I've won different awards for projects and programs. I've been able to grow the scope of work to the clients and the businesses that I oversaw. So I had that professional experience to say, okay, hey, I've got some business savvy here. But in real estate, I built up a smaller portfolio. So I certainly had some background, but not enough to go out and buy a 100-unit building by any means.
Yeah.
So the way you adjust for that is you have to borrow credibility from others. So that's where you go get that team, the partner, the coaches, the mentors, the property management companies, right? There's a reason a lender doesn't lend to someone who's looking to run their own 100-unit deal, but they have no real estate experience, right? No, they're going to make you go get a property management company that
Right.
is reputable, experienced, that knows the space. They're going to force that on you, right? That lender itself, the lender's not going to lend to you if they don't believe you can actually do it. Yes, it helps to have the money, but they want to know your experience, your track record. And if you don't have it, they're going to make you bring other people on the team. So that's the other piece. If you are new and trying to get traction, ask yourself, who on your team has the knowledge? You ask those questions, right? Am I analyzing the taxes the right way? Did I miss insurance? Like all of these questions, you need to have someone on your team who you can take that paper or your homework to and say, hey,
Yeah.
what do you see here? Did I miss something? Property management company. Every time we get a deal, one of the things we do is we sit down on a property management company. We've already done our own underwriting. I want them to underwrite it now. And let's see where the discrepancies are. I used to share mine with them and then have them review it. What I found is most of them are lazy and they'll just say, oh, yeah, it looks good. If you really mess something up, they'll call it out. But you really want them to underwrite it separately without seeing yours. So then you can
Hmm.
really compare them side to side and say, oh, okay, you had $35,000 for this. I had $48,000 for this. We're pretty far off. Why do you guys have this? And they might
Yeah.
say, hey, in the marketplace, we're seeing this expense has gone up 7% over the last 2 years. And okay, I didn't have that data, right? Or maybe they're going across their portfolio or they've got some other intelligence. So when you have that, that's where the credibility comes from. Again, it's not to fake it or to just boost a resume to convince a broker to get you a deal. It's to truly be prepared to take that deal on.
Yeah.
You got to have the right team in place. And that credibility comes from leveraging the experiences of the other people around you.
Yeah. It sounds, you could say, oh, that's a good life hack, but no, just a good like business hack of pooling the knowledge of those around you to lever for everybody's success, really. Sounds like a lot of jargon right there, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true. It also is important to understand what you do well and what you don't do well. And
Yeah.
I know for me, part of it is it's great to have partners who are more risk averse and will go out. One of my partners pretty well, and there have been deals where we've had a conversation about it, and I thought we left that conversation with, all right, we're going to do some more analysis. And I get a text that, hey, just submitted the offer. I'm like, oh, I didn't know we were submitting the offer. I thought we were still going back and
Yeah.
forth. But sometimes you need a partner like that because when you work well together or you can work in that environment, it helps to have that blend, especially if you know that, hey, I'm probably going to analyze this thing 50,000 times because I maybe come from a risk loss standpoint. And this person they're more optimistic. So they're just going to see everything positive. But now I
Mhm.
also know where we sit down and what we talk about. Okay, hey, do we look at this? Do we look at that? Do we look at this? How do we adjust this? And now you can reach a place where you say, okay, hey, we've covered the big things. I feel like we've got a good plan. We can work through this. We've mitigated these risks, or hey, we got to watch out for this challenge. And now you can move forward together.
What do you feel, or what sort of systems and technology is not on our outline? So I'm throwing you a bit of a
Yeah.
curveball,
Yeah.
but it is a topic I'm interested in. What sort of technologies do you use in your business to help you be more efficient?
Yeah, great questions. One of the biggest things for us is obviously so to give everybody more context, the primary core element of our business is obviously buying apartment buildings. In order to do that, we raise capital for those apartment buildings. So we work with everyday individual investors. So it's not like some huge private equity fund that's writing a $5 million check. We're pretty much raising $50,000 to $100,000 at a time. A database of investors is probably the biggest thing for us, and having a CRM system to house that, to manage communications, track those conversations that we're having with people, being able to follow up with those individuals and just make sure it's all in a portal or in a system where
Mhm.
if we were ever either audited or we have to demonstrate our relationship with these individuals, we have that house somewhere. So the strong CRM system is probably the biggest piece of technology and data that we use. I've gone from starting off with MailChimp and Pipedrive to we now focus on active campaign for our marketing aspect. And then we actually have an investor portal that we use for the actual investments. And one of the things that people don't realize is just how much paperwork is involved with doing a deal,
Mhm.
particularly when you are syndicating it or working with investors. You have all the subscription documents, and this is sensitive data, right? You've got people's tax IDs or social security numbers in them. You have their addresses. You obviously have their bank account information. So you have a lot of sensitive data, and you definitely want to make sure this data is housed in a secure space. But also, you've got to keep it all organized and be able to figure out, all right, hey, it's time to make a distribution. Trying to do that by hand and going through 20 investors or how many ever it
Yeah.
is, that could be a lot of work to sit there and say, okay, Susie Q is here's her bank account information. And so you need to have some of these things simplified. I'm not going to say automated, but you need to have them simplified in a portal so you can just click one button to send out those distributions or to send out those updates and just run it professionally.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I was just pulling my K-1s this morning from some of our partners.
K1s,
Um,
those are our K1s are usually 1,000 pages, right? So it's
yeah.
you get these huge, thick K1s, and it's okay. These 3 pages go to this person, and it's got to be alphabetized. The great thing now with technology is I can bulk upload,
Yep.
and it'll read it and just automatically put. I just got to double check the work, but it goes directly to the right person. I'm sure in the past, like that was a painful project where you literally had to take that 1,000-page document, pull out 3 pages for this person, put it in an envelope, mail it to them, and I couldn't imagine the administrative work that some of those things took in the past.
Yeah, for sure. What do you how do what do you feel the role of brokers is in commercial real estate?
I think brokers are key. When you're starting out, you will hear a lot of people talk about getting off market deals. And,
Which
you
is
know,
the
it's the
worst way to approach a broker, especially if you're brand new.
so off market with a broker, without a broker, it's the holy grail that everyone's looking for, right? I want the
Yeah.
off market deal that no one's seen, no one knows about. And I think what happens is reality has to come into play. First and foremost, you said something earlier, I think it's really important for people to understand. As a broker, you underwrite hundreds of deals a year, okay? To find deals to list. So you're talking to owners
Yeah.
all the time. What's going on? And you've been in the industry a long time. That dude sold 5 years ago. He's probably going to sell it next year. This person never sells their properties. This person bought 2 years ago, but their loan situation is messed up. They need to buy it. They need to get out. You're having these conversations all the time. So when an investor like me comes along and I'm trying to go direct to an owner, I don't know who's serious about selling. I don't know who's just kicking a can. I don't know who's just playing with me or whatever. So we're wasting a lot of time
Yeah.
trying to vet these opportunities. Now, if you're in a 4 unit, 8 unit, 10 unit space, you could probably find gold there.
Sure.
In my experience, when you get above 50 units, you're typically dealing with a more sophisticated investor who is not likely to be in a situation where they have to fire sale to some guy who cold called them or sent them a letter, right?
Right.
That's just not the case. And they're typically going to go through a professional broker like yourself, and you all are going to have the best deals. So I would say, as the name implies, as a broker, brokers are the ones who help get deals done.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important to understand. And when you look at a broker, they're finding that opportunity from the folks who actually want to sell. They're vetting them. They know what's important to this individual. And then they're looking to find the best buyers. And as a buyer, as an investor, there's an opportunity for you to stand out and to build connections with those brokers, right? So you're not going to get that hot off market deal the first time you try to do something with the broker. You're just not. They don't know you, right? Go back
Right.
to building relationships. You've got to build them. The other thing that's important for people to understand is brokers don't get paid until the deal closes. And you and I have done a deal where that deal dragged out. I know you were getting frustrated,
Yeah.
but it sucks for everybody, right? We're all getting frustrated, but there's a ton of work that you guys put in, and it doesn't get the payoff until we're at that closing table.
Sure.
So that certainty to close is important. Being clear in communication, I think, is important. One of the things that I've tried to get better at over the years is just being direct and upfront. And hey, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, here's my concerns, and that saves some time. So I think understanding the role of the broker is absolutely key. They're there to help. I think sometimes people say, oh, especially in commercial real estate, if you come from residential, you may get shocked that these brokers typically tend to represent both buyers and sellers.
Right.
And in residential, obviously, there's a buyer side and a seller side. That's just not really the case in commercial. In commercial, everyone's really, you got to vet your own things, right? You ask questions, but the broker's role is to help broker the deal to get done,
Mhm.
not to be your agent. I know those words seem interchangeable for people, right? Agent, broker, whatever. But I look at it like this. In residential, you basically have your attorney, your agent person, they're fighting on your behalf, right? They're going to sit there and fight tooth and nail to get every dollar for you and help you get the best deal possible. In commercial, that's not the case. You have a mediator who recognizes that you've got one party who wants to sell. They've got some things they need to get done or some parameters on the deal that they need. You got somebody who wants to buy and they need some things to be done a certain way. The broker's job is to help mediate that transaction to take place and finding the right individuals and pairing them with the right deals. And if it's not the right individual for that deal, particularly on the buyer side, to figure that out as early in the process as possible so you can spend more time finding that right buyer.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. To the point of buyer's agents, I remember it was very early in my career, and a large owner had articulated their acquisition criteria to me. So I found a deal that kind of generally fit, but it was somebody else's listing. And I sent it to him. And I was like, hey, sir, this might be a deal you're interested in. And he very politely replied back, Sash, I appreciate you sending me this, but I don't need you to send it to me. I'm already on their distribution list. And if I'm interested, I'm going to contact them directly. And I don't know if heartbroken is the right word, but I was like, but I'm trying to do the right thing. And in reality, and I think he even said this, I want you to go out and find in non-represented deals and then bring them to us. And that is certainly, I never did that again, unless specifically somebody was like, hey, go out and see what you can find on this for me. But
Yeah.
that's a very different scenario. Yeah. Yeah. To your point about brokers being intermediaries, there's a lot of get a message from a seller of that very could be interpreted very negatively if we just straight up transmitted it to the buyer or vice versa. And it's our job to filter that and figure out what and how needs to be communicated and when. So there's a lot of minutia involved.
Yeah, and
So
and I can only imagine how tough it is, especially when you got the personalities, right? Like I think about the kind of people who get into commercial real estate. These are typically people who did not want to be in corporate or more structured environments, right? Maybe more rambunctious personalities and they're independent entrepreneurs. So I can only imagine when you get one person here or one person here and they've set their feet in and they're just that personality's coming out and you're in the middle, right? Trying to figure out, all right, how do I make sure this deal gets done? I know this person just said something super wild that I'm certainly not going to communicate, but I've got to get it there. And I
yeah,
can say too early on, that can be intimidating, particularly if you're newer and you're dealing with somebody who is a seller and they have the property or that they have a perception that they're more established and they're barking at you. Like
yeah,
that can be intimidating as a new investor, right? And you feel like, oh, okay, I feel like I should either I got to acquiesce to this demand or I need to go bow out because this person is going to railroad me and just continue to railroad me for the next 2 months until we get to closing. So I
mhm,
think that's the other challenge, right? As a broker is that I would say as a new investor and as a broker, where when you talk about that role of the broker, having a good relationship with that broker and being able to talk to them and almost being transparent and saying, listen, here's how I'm feeling. I like the deal. Here's where I'm at. But here's this other issue that I'm sensing. And I need guidance here. Is this something I'm making up? Is this real? Am I going to be okay? Or is this going to be an issue? Because
right,
again, the key for me is, or I think for everyone, which if you know that brokers don't get paid until a deal gets done, the broker's motivation is really clear to get the deal done.
Right.
So if they get a sense that they're going to waste 3 months with you and then you're going to back out, I'm sure they would much rather you let them know what's going on up front so they can then salvage it and spin it or whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
But if you get to that far down the road, you're just going to make everybody upset.
Yeah. A quick no is better than a slow
Yeah.
maybe. So that's good. This is a good conversation. I was texting with my brother-in-law and sister who are partners of mine in a deal that I'm doing here in town. It's a heavy redevelopment deal. I just dove headfirst into it. But I said, hey guys, if we can pull this one off, then we're going to buy the neighbor. Then if we can do both of those successfully, then there's a chunk of property up the road that this family owns and we can buy that too, but we're going to need help. And so they're like, what's the best way because they're both in software sales. They don't know the first thing about real estate necessarily or how it works or operates. And so I directed them to Bigger Pockets because I feel like that's a good I'll say nonpartisan or they're just going to say, here's what it is. And there are folks in any organization like that are maybe going to have an agenda, but I feel like Bigger Pockets has here are the facts sort of thing. What other resources for somebody like them or who are maybe newer to real estate but want to increase their knowledge? What other things have you seen that have been effective?
I'll echo that sentiment, right? Bigger Pockets is a great starter place. It's a place that I used early on and helped me tremendously just to connect with people, get feedback. And it's one of those things where I try to find the same answers to the same questions just to see how different people answer it. So I can figure out, okay, hey, 7 out of 10 people pretty much said the same thing. That's probably pretty good. I should probably rely on that or at least look there first, but you get
Yeah.
some good feedback. The other thing I would say is definitely read books. And one thing that's really important for everyone is to understand what kind of investor do you really want to be? I think starting out, people assume that they want to be hands on and active and yeah, I'm about this property, I'm gonna manage it, or I'll hire this management company. It could be a lot more work than you anticipate,
It's
even with
so
a third
much
party
work.
manager. Even with a
Yeah.
third party manager. I recall we did a partnership with a family member on a 28 unit in Norwood. And at the time I was still in Chicago. And the vision was, okay, my partner was going to be more of the eyes, boots on the grounds. I would be more of the brain since I was more in real estate. But what ended up happening is they couldn't get to the property as frequently as they needed. We had a third party management company. We're running into the issues there. We're running into issues with our contractor, running into issues with the city. And I found myself having to shoot down to Cincinnati like every other week to meet
Jeez.
with the team, figure out what was going on. And I was way more involved than I intended to be. I think my partner realized that this was more hands-on than what he thought he was signing up for. And it's just really important to be honest with what do you really want to do? Because there are ways to make money in real estate without being a landlord yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where the passive investing comes in. That's where learning about syndications or JVs or private lending. There are lots of strategies that you can use. So I would just say before you own the property and you're stuck being that person, really think through, do you want that? So I knew I wanted it. Like I managed my 2 unit, I managed the 3 unit. When we bought the 8 unit, I hired a third party management company, but I knew this was the career path I wanted to build out in business that I wanted to go down. So I was okay with that. I think a lot of people sign up to be in real estate for passive income and to have more free time to be with their family and friends. And they sign up and get a second job. And
Yeah.
it's, wait a minute, I didn't want a part-time job. I thought I was getting mailbox money. And you better be really clear on the strategy. A couple of the resources on that. There's a great book called The Hands-Off Investor.
Hmm.
And the author is, I've had him on my show many times, great guy, and helped me out a lot early on, but he's really active on Bigger Pockets as well. But The Hands-Off Investor is a great book. If you are looking to learn more about, JV deals, there's some smaller books that are specifically on JVs that I would look at as well. And then listen to podcasts like this. If you could fill your quiet time, whether it be coffee time, commute, working out, if you can just make it a priority to get 30 minutes a day, just education in and just learning a little bit more about it and understanding what it takes, that's going to make it so much easier for you. And then ultimately, if you're going to be someone who is managing it, That means getting the right property management team in place, leasing, contractors, all of that. And you got to start building out your network for that. And in that case, you've got to get out to meeting people. So meetups are phenomenal for that. You're not always going to meet the contractors at these events, but you can meet other investors and certainly ask them, hey, who are you using at your project? If you're doing a rehab, I'd love to come by and take a look at it. And now you can get a feel for the subs, the specialties that you might need. And that's a great way to start building out your connections and your relationships.
Yeah, that's great advice. Awesome. John, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. If somebody's interested in learning more about what you have to offer or just want to get in touch, have some questions, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I found that when we talk to people about investing in apartments, it can be slightly overwhelming if it's the first time you've thought of it. So we put together a sample deal package. It's not a real deal. You actually would recognize probably some of the pictures in that document. But I
Okay.
did a hodgepodge of different deals I was looking at the time and just created a sample deal that's made up. But it gets into what you can expect with an offering. So that's available on our website, casmoncapital.com/sample deal. And then we also host a podcast specifically on multifamily investing. That show is called Multifamily Insights. We've been running that for 7+ years now. So we've got over
Amazing.
640 episodes. Actually, we dropped 650 today. So 650
Nice.
episodes. Check it out there if you want to learn more about multifamily. Some great, phenomenal guests, great information. So that's available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
That's awesome. John, thank you so much, my friend. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Stash. Appreciate you having me.
All right.